Hello and welcome to this lesson about plurals. So plurals in Afrikaans are known as meervoude, and in this lesson I'm going to show you exactly how to break them down into 16 manageable rules that when you study this, you won't ever have to study rules for plurals ever again. So you choose. Either you revise it each and every time that you need to write a test, or you learn this once and you remember it forever. Okay, so like I said, rules for plurals are divided into 16 tiny rules. So just to give you a broad overview, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So you can see that the bottom 8 is really, they're not that hectic, but the top 8, it's really something that you need to know in order for you to master plurals. Okay, so right now we'll start at the very top, which is kortvokaal, langvokaal, meervoud met S, meervoud met E. So I would really love it if you remember it like that or picture it like that. Okay, so what is kortvokaal? Kortvokaal is when you have a short vowel, one of these 5, in your word or in the last part of the word. So both of those things apply. So when you do have that, you just double the last letter and add an E. So an example would be blom, which becomes blomme with 2 M's and an E. Vis becomes visse, lip becomes lippe, so on and so forth, and you just double the last letter and add an E. So you just have to make sure that you remember this rule. And what do I mean by last part of the word? I mean, for example, words like stryk das is basically a compounded word. So you're going to look at das and then you're going to also add an S, another S and E, so that it becomes strykdasse. All right, then a quick rule of thumb, words that end on an F get a W. For example, the word gif in plural will be give with a W. Okay, let's move on to langvokaal. Langvokaal means these sounds in your words. So normally when you've come across words like these, the last vowel is gonna fall away and you're going to add an E. So an example is boom. It has those 2 O's in there. So one of them fall away and then you're going to add E at the end. Same with all these other words. In this rule, the same applies with the last part of the word as well. For example, kultuur. It's not like a compounded word, but it has 2 syllables, but you're only going to focus on the dier part and you're going to make the one vowel fall away and add the E at the end. Then this rule also applies here, meaning that if the word ends on an F, in the plural form, it will get a W. So stoof will become stoewe here. Then the next one is meervoud met S. So what happens with meervoud met S? So typically, it's words that end on L, M, N, and R, and words such as motor will become motors, venster will become vensters. And I want to emphasize here that it's typically words like these, which means that you have to eliminate all these other rules for this to apply. Okay, then another reason why a word would get an S is if it's a verkleinwoord. So as you know, verkleinwoord is like saying hond becomes hoentjie, for example, then it will also get this S here at the end if it's plural of hond. I hope that makes sense. Next, we're going to look at meervoud met ear, meervoud met ear. And there are 3 rules here, and I would love it if you would study all 3 rules because all of them apply, right? So the first one is words that contain a diphthong. So diphthong, remember, in our pronunciation chart, is line number 3 and line number 4. Okay, so here the diphthong is this IE pronounced E and this EU pronounced ear. So veal and deer, right? So because it contains a diphthong, in plural form, you're just going to add an E here at the end. Same with diere there. Then number 2, woorde wat eindig op 'n diphthong, meaning it must end on a diphthong. Sorry, it's actually all three of these letters. So the O, E, I, ui. So this word is kui. You're gonna say kuia. Okay, and then woorde wat eindig op 'n dubbele consonant. What this means is that words that typically end on two consonants here will also get an E in most cases. So you must do a process of elimination. Okay, also. Then let's move on to rule number 5. Rule number 5 says when the word ends on ng, so you have two ways that a word can end on ng. Number one is if it's a short word, and number two is if it's a long word. If it's a long word, it simply means that it has more than one syllable, okay? So if it's a short word, you're only going to add e, and the examples given here are slang becomes slange, and ring becomes ringe. But if it has more than one syllable of meer as een lettergreep, then you're going to add an S. So koning becomes konings, and then heining becomes heinings. Okay. And then the next one, rule number 6, woorde met te. Okay. So here also, most cases, when a word ends on ig, then it's going to get te in the plural. So an example is plig becomes pligte, gesig becomes gesigte. You would have made a mistake here to say plige or gesigge because you are trying to apply this rule, but you need to first eliminate it from here. And then it's been known that words that end on SKPF, SKPGF, also might take on the D, but they are common words that you can keep practicing to ensure that you know the plural thereof. And it includes vrug, which becomes vrugte, tydskrif, which becomes tydskrifte, and product, which becomes producte. Okay, let's move on to rule number 7. Afkappingsteken, it means apostrophe. So words that end on IOU and a beklemtoon R, that means an emphasized A. Okay, so IOU and an emphasized A. Bear in mind, this is not diphthong, which means that it must be the vowel on its own. Okay, so bikini will become bikinis with apostrophe S. Foto becomes fotos with an apostrophe S, as well as minis. But ma is emphasized, so it will also have the apostrophe. However, oma, the emphasis is on O, not on the ma part. That's why it doesn't get together with camera. So camera, the emphasis on the first A, camera. It's not camera, and that's why it doesn't get the apostrophe. I hope that makes sense. And then rule number 8, words with deeltekens. So words that typically end on a double E or a G. And please bear in mind that G is here and it's also there. So you need to teach yourself the difference between these two rules. And then fear, it's like fairy, in plural becomes vier, and then vlieg in plural becomes vlieg, which means fly. Okay, next. Now we're getting to the easier ones. So these words would have typically taken the same rule as rule number 8, but they have their own set of rules. So they only get an E without the deelteken. Deelteken are these two dots here on this E. So dag becomes da and vlag becomes vla. Okay. So there's actually a few of them that you need to learn like that. But I feel like if you learn just like maybe 5 words that look like this, you don't need to know more than that. Excuse me. Then kappie, words that get a kappie include brug, rug, and sog. And to be honest, if you are doing FAL, you won't need to know more than these. So brug becomes brr. Look where the kappie is sitting. It's not sitting on the E, sitting on the U. And then rug means back. Your back, human back, becomes r. And then sog, I think sog is a female pig, becomes so. I could never say that word. Anyway, so yeah, I think if you learn these 3, you should be fine. Then the next one is meervoud met ers, meaning what do we add ers to? So these are the three common ones, which is why I would also recommend you study these. So kind becomes kinders, golf becomes golfers, note the W, and then lam becomes lammers. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Meervoud made ends. Okay, for this one, I want you to specifically know just bed and butt, which becomes beddens, and butt becomes buttons. To be honest, I would have put it here by uitsonderings, but I really need you to know this because a lot of kids struggle to remember it. Then the next one is also yada that I would have also put here, but basically it's to say that any word that ends with height needs to become yada in that plural form. As you can see, there's also besagheid there that becomes besaghede. Then all family members must get an S. I think that's easy enough to remember. All family members must get an S. Okay. Next one, woorde met man. So a Frenchman, right? Fransman. So whenever this is whenever this is gender specific like this, because this could have also said Fransvrouw, okay? If it's one specific person, one specific gender, then it can stay like this. But as soon as there's more than one, or even a group of mixed genders or something like that, then it needs to become one thing, die Franse. Okay, because this was referring to one set of person. I know that doesn't make sense, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. And then policeman, you see one policeman or you see a policevrouw. But the plural of policeman or policevrouw is politie because whether they are two or more, now they become part of this one clique, one identity. Okay. Beerman, same. So beerman means your neighbor who's a man, and if it was a woman, it was gonna be buurvrou. But if both the mom and dad that are your neighbors come to you, you're not gonna say hallo buurvrou, hallo buurman. You're gonna say hey, die bure is here, that type of a thing. So that's what this means in plural. Then this last column is for all the other exceptions. Uitsonderings means exceptions, okay? So but becomes baie. I know it looks so weird, but this is how it is in plural. Skip becomes skiepe. You know what? There's another word that needs to fit here, and it's start. Okay, so skip will be skiepe, and then start will be stede. Okay, and then glas and gat are gonna get the same change. So glas and gat, we're gonna pretend as if they had two A's here. So now it's going to be glase with one S and gate with one T. Then kas is going to be kaste. Technically, these two we can move to here because they do end on S. Okay, just you can't say kasse or nese. Yes. And then lid becomes lede. Lid means member. So here members. Hemp, hemde. So the p falls away and you are left with the de. And then woof becomes woofde as well as voeg. So a woof and voeg, they take on the same change. And then speelding, the ding becomes goed. So speelding word speelgoed. So as jy al hierdie reëls leer, dan hoef jy nooit weer meervoude te leer nie, want jy weet nou wat om te doen. Okay, so it's not about anything other than finding a way to cope with the many rules so that you don't have to keep guessing. There's nothing as bad as guessing, especially when you are in the test. So it's either you know or you don't know. So if you don't know, you are tempted. But if you do know, because you've studied these rules, it should come easier to you. Okay, I guarantee that if you study this, if you study this once, you never have to study this again. Okay, I really hope you enjoyed that lesson. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.